So what I'm going to do today is just answer some of the questions, the most common questions that you'll ask me in the comments. I'm slightly out of breath. I just ran up the stairs after getting my tape measure. Started the video, realised I hadn't got the bloody tape measure. So excuse me for a second whilst I catch my breath. Yeah, the most common question, I think, was the dimensions. How long is it? How wide is it? And how high are these uprights? Because apparently they're not on the GT and Maker website yet. So let's have a little measure up, shall we? From the floor, well, the bottom of the upright to the top is 31 inches or 79 centimetres. The width, do you want to know the width of, I suppose you want to know the total width for the whole thing, really, because these uprights make it a bit wider. So the total width is 68 centimetres or just under 27 inches. It doesn't include, of course, your shifter mount, but probably not too important because you might all be doing different. Oh, I'll measure that as well. Why not? I've got a tape measure in my hand. So including the shifter mount and to the leg here, we're looking at about 91 centimetres or pretty much bang on 3 feet. And then of course the length, let's do that. The length, oh for fuck's sake, stay where you are. The length is 138 centimetres or whatever that was in inches, 138 centimetres or about 54¼ inches. So that's your length, that's your width of these, the width including the shifter mount. Oh, do you want the width for this bit here? Maybe you do. That is 58 centimetres or just under 23 inches. What else might people want? Maybe you want to know the depth of the pedal tray. That is 44 centimetres or 17½ inches. And the width of the pedal tray, which is also your internal width here, 50 centimetres or 19½ inches. Now, I don't think, maybe you want to know perhaps the inside measurement of the wheel deck in case you want to put button boxes, a wheelbase and other button boxes or handbrakes. I suppose you might want to know that. See what you can squeeze in there. Bang on 60 centimetres or 23½ inches. And the depth for that is 6 inches or 15 centimetres. I think maybe the shifter plate itself, 16½ centimetres front to back, and not including the brackets because you can't obviously mount to the bracket. So just the mount itself is 21½ centimetres or about 8½ inches. Now, I think that's probably all you guys need to know. Maybe you want to know the height of one of these. That is 16 centimetres or about 6¼ inches high. And of course it is 4 centimetres of 40mm profile, which is about like 1¾ inches that way. I think that probably is all the measurements you might want. Yeah, because anything else on it you can obviously adjust and move around to where you'd want it. So they're your sort of static measurements that won't change. So that was one of the questions. In fact, that's probably the most popular question. The other question was, does it come with feet? And the answer is yes, it does come with feet. If you look, you can see here, I've got these furniture sliders on. One there, there's one just there, and there's one there, and the same the other side. They're foam with a Teflon underside, which allows me to just slide things around on my carpet really easily. What's on top of those, pardon me, is 6 round, they're probably 2 inches in diameter feet, and they just screw into your T-nuts in the bottom of the profile. So again, you can put them where you want. As you can see, I spaced them evenly. But yes, it does come with feet, small round, sort of 1.5 inch, 2 inch diameter feet that screw into the bottom. They're probably, I don't know, 10 mil deep. So they would raise the whole cockpit off the ground about 10 mil if you happen to be on a hard surface. Obviously I'm on carpet, which is why I've got my furniture sliders on there. What else were people asking? Oh yeah, someone commented that there's no forward and backward adjustment for the wheelbase, which is obviously a little bit of a strange thing to say, but you must have missed the part where I'm attaching these big steel brackets at the bottom here with these uprights, because for those of you that did pay attention, you know you just slacken those off and you can slide this whole section forwards and backwards to put your wheel deck exactly where you need, front to back. And also, even further adjustment than that, the 4 bolts that hold the actual wheel deck to the uprights, they're slotted as well, which allows you a small amount of forward and backward movement and all your angle adjustment. But also, I don't know if you'll see it, oh you can see it, there's 1, 2, 3 channels in these uprights. So you can choose the front 2, the back 2, or the outer 2. Now if you really wanted to have this sticking out this way further, you would just use the front 2. If you wanted it hanging out the back for some reason, some people like to hang out the back, you would use the back 2. But obviously I've got it centralised because to me it makes no sense to be hanging out the front or hanging out the back. Certainly not with sim racing anyway. When you can just move the whole thing backwards or forwards. So yeah, no need to dick around with those too much. But yeah, up and down, backwards and forwards is all adjustable. Nothing's fixed, and the angle as well. People were asking about monitor mounts. There are monitor mount solutions coming for this, but also if you would prefer freestanding monitor mounts that aren't attached to your rig, GT Amiga do a single monitor that's mount that's freestanding, and they do a triple monitor solution. I might put a picture of those up now. If I do it in edit, I won't know until I get there. So let's assume that I do. So here you have the single monitor mount. Ta-da! And then if we change the page, this should now be the triple monitor mount. So yeah, if you don't want one that attaches to the rig, so professional, you can buy the freestanding ones. And there's pros and cons to those, because with some rigs, like my Art over there, the TV, the monitor will wobble a little bit as I'm aggressively driving. It's not necessarily the fault of the Art cockpit or in fact the monitor mount that attaches to it. It's the fact that I've got a 50-inch plasma which weighs almost as much as me attached to it, and it's only held on by 2 of the Vaser mount points because it's bigger than what the monitor mount allows. So I get a little bit of wobble. But to be honest, I don't really notice it when I'm racing. But yeah, and again, if you talk about this one, if you had a monitor mount bolted to this and it was bolted securely, you know, in a similar fashion to this, perhaps uprights and then cross sections, you probably wouldn't get any movement or wobble anyway, because this rig doesn't have any movement or wobble. But yes, they are available, freestanding ones, single and triples. What else did people ask? I did put this in a text document and now I've covered it up on the screen. Let me just have a little look and bring that back up. Again, showing off my sheer professionalism here. So, adjustment, monitor mounts, feet, and the dimensions we've done. So, two things left to talk about then. A lot of people expressed concern about this pedal deck and whether it's going to be solid enough for, you know, high-end pedals with load cells, like my V3s over there, Fanatics. Whilst they're not technically high-end, they still have a load cell and they can still take, 90 kilograms of force applied to it. Even if you've got 1,500 pound pedals, the load cells all perform in a similar fashion. So, yeah, people were saying, is this pedal deck going to be sturdy enough, Cole? And it's a fair point, because unlike some of the other manufacturers, it isn't like a 5 or 6 mil solid piece of steel. It's probably 2 or 3 mil. And then there is a bar across the middle, like a bit of box section to brace it across the middle. And the sides, the front, the back, and the 2 sides are folded down at 90 degrees, welded at the sides. Now, this all gives it rigidity versus if it was just a standard plate with no edges and no bracing. It's that sort of box. They've almost made it into a box, if you know what I mean. And that's what adds the rigidity. It would be very difficult. You could flex a piece of steel like this, but add a side to it like that. This side will then prevent the flex. So whilst it isn't as thick and solid as some of the other ones, it is still solid. And what I'm going to do is a totally stupid test to demonstrate this, but it's going to be amusing and it will help. So what I want to do in a minute is get the camera and put it on a tripod down here so you can see the side view of this deck here. And I'm going to get on it like this and I'm going to jump up and down and you'll be able to see if there's any flex. Now, a few things we need to talk about here when I do this. The brace, by the way, runs across the middle here. So the strongest points of this pedal deck are going to be across the middle here and the sort of few inches nearest the edges where we're closest to the 90 degree fold that will prevent flex. The weakest point will be the areas here, 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 and here. Now, really, in fact, slap bang in the middle here and slap bang in the middle here. The closer you get to the edges, both the outer edges this way and the front and back edges, the more rigid it will be and the less flex, if any, you would notice. It's in the centre here and here, where you're furthest away from those edges, that you may be able to get some flex. Now, I can't feel any. And as I say, what I'm going to do is I'm going to close up this, stand on it, and I'm going to jump in the middles here, I'm going to jump around the edges and just everywhere so you can see whether we get any movement at all. Now, I expect there to be some flex, especially in the middle here and here. Not because this is weak, but because we're doing a stupid test. I weigh 94 kilos. Now some of you might go, oh, that's only 4 kilos more than what some of the load cells are. And you'd be absolutely right. But load cells, when you press your load cell brake, you are not applying downward pressure. You are not applying vertical pressure. You are applying longitudinal pressure for the most part. And you'll understand this when I explain, because so we've got our pedals here and we didn't bolt them to our rig. If you press the brake pedal or even the accelerator pedal, which isn't even a hard pedal to press, your pedals would slide off the back of the tray and end up on the floor. And the reason for that is because most of the force you apply is longitudinally, front to back, not down. So when I jump on this pedal deck in a minute with 94 kilos of my weight, plus the inertia and additional forces gained by me jumping, it's way, way more than what this pedal deck will ever experience during a normal sim racing session. You could have a load cell on here with a 200 kilo sensor and you could apply 200, but you're pushing that way. You're not pushing down. So this is going to be a truly extreme test, and I do expect to see some flex because it's not what it was designed for. But I don't expect to see a lot, and what this will demonstrate is that even under stupid extreme forces, there's very little, if any, movement. And so when you then put it in its normal use case scenario, you can be confident and know that there isn't going to be any flex then, which is what we want to know. Now, other things to point out. When we bolt our pedals to this, usually, let's look at the Fanatics or the Logitechs or Thrustmasters, usually it's 4 bolts. And they are the 4 corners of our pedal set. So they are actually being bolted nearest the most rigid parts of this pedal plate. So for example, and here's a little tip actually, if you're fitting your pedals to this, choose to fit them either all the way to the front or all the way to the back. That way you are nearest the most supported edge, at least at the front or the back, because obviously you can slide the whole thing forwards and backwards. So you don't need to put it in the middle if you're concerned that the middle is the weakest point, which of course or the middle front and the middle back is the weakest point. We've got that bar across the middle there. If you've got pedals that fix in 6 locations, that's actually a bonus, because what will happen there is, by bolting it down in 6 locations, you're actually using some of your pedal assembly's rigidity to add to the rigidity of your pedal plate. A bit like putting a bar across, but instead you're bolting a solid, because like the Fanatic ones over there, they're a solid construction. If I bolt them here, here, here and here, that actually adds to the rigidity of the whole plate. And it's going to help reduce any flex that may or may not be there. So that's actually, you know, it's a positive thing if you can bolt it down in more places. But yeah, I think that's probably all we need to say. So let me get the camera, put it down here, and I'll do this sort of stupid jumping up and down test. Oh, and then I'll answer another question. Someone said this looks just like the one on the Apex wheel stand, which they said, can you still see me? Yeah, which they said has a fair bit of flex in it. Now, I can see if you stood in the middle here, it would have some flex in it. But what we need to note here is there's no supporting bar across the middle of this one, and it is actually a third longer than what that one is. The reason for that is because that needs to fold away and be able to be put to one side, and also you can't move the whole pedal deck forwards and backwards. This one is a third shorter, so like it's about that much extra on that one. This one's a third shorter, which adds to the rigidity, and there's that bar across the middle. So they're not even, and in fact that doesn't have the folded edges either. There's bars that go round. And whilst that's absolutely fine, as a wheel stand, paying wheel stand money, obviously you wouldn't want that design on something like this, and that's why they haven't used it. That's why it's shorter, that's why there's another support brace, that's why we've got the folded edges, and this can of course be slid all the way backwards and forwards, so it doesn't need to be as long for adjustment. But yeah, so that's that question answered as well. It isn't the same, it's completely different, and where that has flex, this definitely does not. So now let's grab the camera, let's put it down here, I'll get it lined up, and then I'm going to jump around and you'll see how much movement we get, if any. So, like I said, the weakest points, middle here, where they're furthest away from the edges, furthest away from the support beam. Now, don't forget, you need to pay attention to this flexing relative to this piece here. If you just watch this move up and down, it's because the carpet's going to be compressing. So pay attention. If this moves at 1 with this outer piece, then it means this isn't flexing and the whole thing is just sinking into the carpet a little bit. So I'm going to stand at the very weakest point straight away on my tiptoes, really isolating that pressure. I'm going to bounce up and down like this. Now I think I can feel a little bit of flex. And again, I expect to feel a bit of flex because this is totally unrealistic. You'll never put this much pressure on it, and it's not how you're going to be using your racing rig. Now, if we step to the outer edges, I can't feel any movement now at all. Let's move forward to here where you would actually have things bolted down. Again, I can't feel any there. And I feel like a ballerina, boys. And the same at the back here. Now, of course, where these cutouts are, if you were to stand on these individual strips, you're going to be able to make them flex a little bit as well. But again, the nearer you are to the centre bar, the better. But hopefully, we're not, so you can see the whole thing sinking into my carpet. But, I mean, I can't really feel much in the pedal deck itself. So hopefully that answers people's questions about whether this is going to be solid enough to take load cell brake pedals. I think the answer is probably quite obviously yes. And again, because we're reinforced here, because the edges are folded, because it's actually bolted at the 4 corners, we've reinforced in the middle, there's only those couple of areas that could flex at all. And that isn't where, in real life use, pressure would be applied. You know, when your pedals are on here, like I said earlier on, we're pushing this way. So what's actually happening is Wherever it's bolted down here is pushing down a bit like I was doing with my toes a minute ago. And at the back here, it'll be trying to lift up a touch. Again, I can't simulate lifting up, but it's just the opposite of pressing down. So the same thing would apply. But like I say, realistically, the force you apply your foot is this way, it's this direction. So you'll never, ever, ever see the sort of pressures that I just applied using my extra COVID heavy mass to jump up and down on here. I have been eating and drinking a lot over the last 6 months. Maybe some of you can tell. But yeah, I think that probably answers that one. So yeah, the next thing someone asked was, now what was the bloody thing called? S-Dream, I think, was another profile rig. Someone said I've been looking at those. They're almost half the price, 300 quid. What is better about this one than the S-Dream? So what I want to do now, hop up on the computer there, bring a picture up on the screen, and we'll talk through the differences because they're pretty obvious when you look at it. The first things we'll need to know are, again, just remember in your head these huge great steel plates that we have here, the way these are bolted on, same as on the Sim Labs and the track racer stuff. Super important to note this. And again, the wheel deck here, just bear those in mind whilst we're talking about this next one. Let me go on the computer and bring it up for us. Right, so here's the S-Dream. It's not the best quality picture, it's the best I could grab from their website. Quite low resolution, but let's have a goosey at it here. So first things first, you can see, because of the way the pedal deck, for want of a better description, because it isn't really a pedal deck, isn't actually attached to these main long sort of base frame pieces. It's attached on its own, and it's attached using, you can see two of them here. I'm going to illustrate this all with my mouse as I talk. These are like hand clamps. You spin them around and you do them up tightly. So to this side and to this side. And just to the top of another one there, and it's the same on the other side. So this will allow you to adjust the angle up and down on these uprights here. And you just clamp them up tight and clamp them up tight here and here. Now, the problem straight away with that means that these lengths here that you are clamping up here and here are not attached at the bottom. They are only nipped up into these channels at the top. That is not a very solid connection, and a solid securing method. I don't know how to word it. You get my point. It's only held at the top. So you're going to be able to, the bottom sections could potentially pull away or allow left to right movement. I don't think you get any up or down flex because ultimately you've got these uprights here. But again, same thing here. You're going to have, if you were to sort of wobble left to right a little bit, maybe you press hard on the clutch and hard on the accelerator, so you're kind of going left, right, left, right, left, right a little bit. You might find it wobbles a little bit left to right. And also, depending, I mean, there's no feet or anything with this, you may find the whole thing just allows a little bit of up and down movement, maybe if you're on carpet. Whereas if it was bolted, if these long sections extended all the way out the front, like on all the other profile rigs, you know, Sim Labs, Track Racer and LGT Omega, there'd be no way your pedal sort of section or area can lift up and down. You can picture if you're on a thick pile carpet that you're pressing your pedals and these upright sections actually dig down into the carpet a little bit more as you press the pedals and then sort of flex back up again or bounce back up again when you lift off. So that just isn't the best idea in the first place. But anyway, talking about this main base here, it's only half the height of the profile used by GT Omega, Sim Labs or Track Racer. I don't know what the thickness is width-wise, I haven't actually looked at the spec, but you can see it's only got two channels at the side here instead of 4, so it's a much slimmer profile. It's probably a little bit thinner as well, I would imagine. So the overall base, thinner, smaller, not as solid straight away. Pedal deck area being made up of just bits of aluminium profile held together with hand clamps and perhaps the odd corner bracket allows for more movement where those joins are. The less joins the better, because they're all opportunities to wobble. Then if we look at these upright sections here, I pointed them out a second ago on the GT Omega Prime. We've got huge great steel plates around the bottom here, pardon me, and the same on the other side. The reason for that is that if you attach them just using these corner brackets here and here, That might be okay for front to back security, to stop it from wobbling front to back, possibly, but it doesn't stop them moving left to right. That was actually right to left, but you get my point. Side to side wobble. The reason SimLabs, Track Racer and GT Omega all bolt them to the sides here, to this bigger, higher profile, is because it stops that side to side play. Now combine that with a solid steel wheel deck, which we don't have here, and there's no way these upright sections can wobble left to right. What you see here will wobble like mad left to right by comparison, even with these two sections that run across the top here, again held in by more corner brackets. Even with those there, it's still going to allow left to right wobble. These corner brackets are only held in by M8 or potentially on this one, I don't really know, M6 Allen bolts. And if I was to grab this top corner here and apply some sideways force, there's a chance I could potentially pull those bolts, which are steel, through the aluminium corner brackets, because aluminium's quite soft. So again, this is the issue here. This is why the price is less, because those big steel plates cost money. The steel plates for down here, the steel wheel deck plate, steel plate for the pedal deck, if it had one, which it doesn't, bigger profiles, twice the height, potentially thicker, longer. All these extra bits of aluminium and steel cost money, and this is where they're saving. And this is where you're losing out. Of course, you're getting what you pay for. You're paying less, so you're getting less. And if that's all your budget allows, then maybe it's not a bad option. But if your budget allows more, and the question in the comments was, why should I buy the GT Omega one over this cheaper one? Well, these are the reasons why. It's going to be a much less solid cockpit. It's going to be left to right wobble on your wheel deck. Your pedal deck is potentially going to wobble up and down, and a little bit left to right maybe as well. And then if we look at the wheel deck here actually itself, it's just another piece. In fact, this piece here is actually the height of what the long base pieces are on all the other manufacturers. So you can see what they should have been using. Again, it's just held on by 4 corner brackets to these cross sections here. And basically it's like walking the plank on an old pirate ship. You get to the end here, and you jump up and down on it, it's going to wobble up and down. Now, whilst it isn't going to wobble up and down like a pirate ship plank, if you strap a hefty wheelbase to it, there is definitely going to be some up and down flex, both in this length itself and where it's fixed to these 2 cross pieces here. They're probably going to twist just a little bit. And again, the force then travels to these upright sections. The only thing stopping them going forwards and backwards is these little corner brackets all the way down here. And it's just not going to be enough to stop flex. And that's why none of the other manufacturers, SimLabs, Track Racer, and now GT Omega, why none of them use this type of setup. Yes, it's cheaper. Yes, it's easier, but it's not as solid. Same goes for what would be a shifter setup on the right hand side here. This is sat here ready to, it doesn't come with a shifter mount either. This is ready to receive some sort of shifter mount. You see down here it's held on by 2 corner brackets again. Now there could be 2 more either side that I can't see, but my guess is there's probably just these 2 here. Again, Track Racer, SimLabs, GT Omega, they all use a small steel plate. It would just be out of shot here on the back side, just like they've done for these upright sections, but smaller because it doesn't have anywhere near the forces on it. That is a tried and tested method, and it will work better. What you'll get here is this will be able to flex in and out because it will be pivoting on just these ones here. So again, you can see where the corners are being cut to keep the price down, and this is why the GT Omega, the SimLabs, the Track Racer are all more money than what this one is. So what you actually see here is what I'm going to call a DIY rig, but that's just been packaged up and all the parts are being sent to you in one big box, because there's not one piece of bespoke machined material here. These are all just off-the-shelf lengths of aluminium profile with corner brackets and the sort of hand brackets that you do up down here. You can just go on eBay or any aluminium profile supplier and buy all these bits, including the little plastic end caps, and you can just bolt it all together yourself. So that's fine if you want to do that, and if that's the sort of money you can afford, 300 notes, maybe it's not too bad. But in answer to the question, why is this so much cheaper than the GT Omega and why should you buy the GT Omega or the SimLabs or the Track Racer, there's the answer to your question. It's just not as solid in any aspect of it, not the main base, Not the uprights, not the wheel deck, not the pedal deck, not the area where you mount your shifter, not even the uprights here that the seat bolts to are as thick. So yeah, it's just that little bit cheaper. Anyway, I think that's the last question. So let's bring myself back round to the front of the camera here. So hopefully that is everyone's questions answered about this new Prime cockpit that you now can't really see in the background, but it's still there. We've been through the dimensions, we've been through the adjustability, we've been through the rigidity of the pedal deck. Hopefully that's sort of put a few people's minds at ease. It's going to be okay. Again, like I said at the very beginning, it isn't as thick as a solid piece of steel, but the way it's been done should be sufficient to not have any flex under normal use. You know, if we see some, I haven't obviously looked at the footage yet, if we see some when I'm jumping on it, that is to be expected because it's not normal use. You know, and also if you are using really high-end pedals, sort of £1,500, £2.5 grand pedals, some of them will even come with their own base plate that is a big thick piece of steel or aluminium, and you can just bolt that obviously straight onto there with the pedals on, and then you know you're definitely not going to get any sort of flex at all, even if there was any that we see. That would cure that, you know, and a lot of these top-end pedal manufacturers do supply these, or sometimes they're an optional sort of 40, 50 quid, which again, when you're buying £2.5 grand pedals, £1,500 pedals, another 50 notes, just for the peace of mind that it's going to be rock solid, why not do it? I know I would, just to be 100% sure. But yeah, I'll look at the traffic, I was going to say, I don't know what I was going to say. I'll look at the footage, thinking about internet traffic. I'll look at the footage because I'm curious to see whether we see any flex or not. But I think that's probably everything. We spoke about the S-Dream rig as well. If you have any other questions, get them in the comments below. If you're on the fence about getting one because of the pedal deck flex, hopefully this has answered those questions. And don't forget the pre-order discount, Prime 10, click the link below, is only available till they start shipping, which I believe is the 14th of December. So you've got about 3 weeks to make that extra discount and get them a little bit cheaper. After that, you get my usual discount by using my links, but right now, an extra 10% off. So yeah, make the most of that. Anyway, hopefully that's been helpful. Thanks very much for watching, and as always, take it easy.